Surprisingly, over 90% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. It motivates us to keep creating and helps us never miss an upload, and The first hint arrived as a drawing taped to the refrigerator. Our 8-year-old Lily had sketched our family at the park. Me pushing her on the swing, her mother holding the dog's leash, and, this was the strange part, a tall man in a blue cap standing where I usually stood in Lily's pictures. She'd colored his cap so carefully that the wax had polished the paper. I asked who he was. She shrugged, said, "Mommy's helper," and changed the subject to pancakes. Emily had been coming home later, polite but distant, like she'd stepped through a doorway where I couldn't follow. Her laugh sounded borrowed. She brushed off simple questions with breezy answers, promising explanations once a project at work settled down. We'd been married 10 years. I knew the rhythms, the pauses, the way tension collected around her eyes. Something had shifted. It wasn't loud. It was careful. I tried to stay calm, to believe there was nothing to worry about. I packed Lily's lunch, ironed a blouse for Emily's meeting, watered the basil that kept wilting no matter where I moved the pot. The house looked the same as always, yet I felt like a guest on my own sofa, a polite man balancing a mug while the people he loved rehearsed lines I hadn't been given. 2 weeks after the blue cap drawing, Lily began telling me about a special driver who sometimes picked her up from aftercare when Emily ran late. "He knows all the shortcuts," she said. "He brings me gummy bears, but only the red ones because I said they taste like strawberries." I kept my voice level and asked for his name. She looked uncertain, then said, "He says to call him Coach." We didn't know any Coach. That night I mentioned it to Emily. She raised her eyebrows in mild surprise and said a colleague had been helping when traffic trapped her. "He coaches youth soccer on weekends," she added, as if that explained the nickname. "He's harmless, just doing me a favor, it's temporary." The word harmless clipped the air like a snapped twig. I nodded, but the basil kept wilting. Small changes multiplied. The playlist she loved went silent. Her phone appeared face down on the counter, then upside down in a drawer. Lily developed a habit of pausing before she spoke, as though testing every sentence for hidden switches. I told myself to focus on our daughter, on stability, on the little traditions we guarded. Saturday waffles, Sunday library runs, Thursday board games even when everyone was tired. One Thursday, we set up our game at the dining table. Emily texted she'd be late. Lily chose a detective game where you solve a mystery by collecting clues. A broken watch, a footprint, a coffee cup. Halfway through, she sighed and said, "I wish Coach would play with us. He likes puzzles." I asked how she knew that. She said he had a puzzle on his phone and solved it in the car, really fast. Her voice held admiration, yet her face folded at the edges, the way it does when children feel two things at once and aren't ready to name either. I didn't want to make Lily carry my worry, so I made the detective in our game unusually silly. We laughed at his exaggerated sneezes and the way he always misplaced his hat. Laughter eased something in the room, but after I tucked Lily in, I sat in the hallway and stared at the nightlight glowing like a little moon. Doubt settled on my shoulders. I remembered the drawing, the blue cap, the gummies, the word harmless. The next day I left work early and waited across from the aftercare building. I had no grand plan. I only wanted to see who arrived. At 5:12, a silver SUV pulled up. Lily ran out with her backpack and a big smile. The driver stepped out, early 40s, athletic frame, real blue cap. He opened the back door, helped with her seatbelt, and handed her a small bag. When he turned, I caught his profile. It wasn't a face I'd forget. He glanced around and spotted me. For a moment, our eyes met across a small sea of parents and crossing guards. He didn't flinch. He gave a pleasant nod, as though greeting a neighbor, then slid behind the wheel and drove away. My stomach felt hollow. I followed at a safe distance. The SUV didn't head toward our house. It took a route that looped past the river, then stopped outside a coffee shop. The man walked inside, leaving Lily in the back watching something on the car's screen. He returned with a cup and a straw for her, then continued. Every action was neat, practiced. I turned toward home and sat in the driveway for 5 minutes before going inside. Emily arrived later, cheerful in a way that made the room feel slightly too bright. She kissed Lily's head, thanked me for starting dinner, and launched into a quick tale about meetings that ran long. I listened. I asked what kind of coffee she'd had that afternoon. She blinked, surprised by the random question. "I didn't get out," she said. "Too busy." I nodded and salted the soup. Lily fell asleep to an audiobook. Emily and I did the little dance of dishes and mail. When we finally sat, the couch between us might as well have been a dock between two distant piers. I said I'd seen the driver. She held my gaze for a heartbeat, then looked at the remote as if it had just spoken. "He's a friend," she said. "He's been helping me manage pickups, that's all. You know how traffic is." The words were gentle yet sealed off, like a polite fence. "I want the truth," I said quietly. "Not a version." Silence filled the living room. The neighbor's wind chimes tinkled through the open window. Emily rubbed her temple. "I think we need space," she said at last. "We've been stuck in patterns that don't work. He's supportive. Maybe he appeared because I was drowning. I didn't plan it." The sentence eased no weight, only rearranged it. I didn't shout. I asked if she intended to end our marriage. She said she didn't know. Those words landed with a dull, steady thud. Lily stirred in her room, and both of us froze, listening. Nothing else moved. In the days after, Emily proposed a trial separation, while insisting everything remained stable for Lily. She began staying out to think, and the blue cap man, whose actual name I learned was Mark, hovered at the edges like a shadow shaped into a person. I kept routines steady. I braided Lily's hair before school the way her mother had taught me, uneven at first, improving each morning. I signed permission slips, learned which socks didn't itch, memorized the name of the class hamster so I could ask about it like an expert. Lily never asked why her mom slept in the guest room sometimes. Children often know more than they ask. She started leaving notes under my coffee mug. A doodle of a sun, a superhero with my initials, a heart with two smaller hearts inside. One morning she handed me a folded paper with a question. "Can we still do Movie Friday even if Mommy is busy?" I wrote back, "Always." On a Saturday, Emily said she wanted Lily to meet a close friend properly. She'd been careful not to name him in front of our daughter, as though it might soften the facts to leave them unspoken. I said it wasn't the right time. She argued that honesty would reduce confusion. We stood in the kitchen speaking softly, our words choosing their own paths. In the end, we agreed on a small picnic at the park by the willow tree. Neutral ground where Lily felt safe. The afternoon came bright and breezy. Ducks scribbled across the pond. Lily skipped ahead of us, counting her steps out loud because she'd invented a game where certain numbers meant you had to spin. We spread a blanket. Emily scanned the path, and a minute later, Mark walked toward us with polite confidence, cap in hand, a paper bag swinging from his wrist. He greeted me like a colleague and offered Lily a neat little kite shaped like a fox. "Thought you might like this," he said. She thanked him, voice steady, eyes unreadable. While Lily and I unraveled the kite string, Mark and Emily kept drifting into a shared bubble. Little laughs, half-finished sentences they both understood. My chest tightened, but I focused on the kite. Lily held it above her head, and we ran together. The fox lifted, tail flickering, then settled into the wind. She laughed, the kind of laugh that forgives a sky for being so big. When the kite had found its rhythm, Lily handed me the spool and walked back to the blanket. She sat across from Mark and asked, in her clear school-presenting voice, "Are you going to live at our house?" Emily flinched. Mark looked to Emily, then to me, then back to Lily. "I'm just a friend," he said carefully. "Friends don't live together, Pumpkin." Lily nodded, as if filing the sentence in a cabinet. We ate sandwiches. Conversation tried to behave to stay pleasant. Then Lily asked if friends always take the same route home from aftercare and stop at the coffee shop with the blue tiles, and whether friends sometimes tell other people not to wave when they see someone they know. She said this without accusation, simply describing a pattern the way she would describe a math problem. Emily set down her cup. Mark's hand tightened around his napkin until it looked like paper snow. Afterward, we strolled by the pond. Lily walked between Mark and me, holding my hand, but glancing up at him, studying his face as if checking it against a memory only she could see. "You smell like Mommy's scarf," she announced. It should have been funny. Instead, Emily's cheeks went pale. Mark tried a smile. I said nothing. Ducks scribbled on the water. creating paths that vanished as soon as they formed. That night, after Lily fell asleep, Emily admitted she had started seeing Mark during a rough stretch. She insisted she hadn't meant to break our family, that she'd been lonely in a crowd, and the attention felt like oxygen. I listened. I thought of Lily's questions, of the kite floating against a boundless sky, of the way children keep walking even when the ground shifts underfoot because they trust the grown-ups to steady it again. I asked Emily again if she intended to end the marriage. She said she needed time. I told her time wouldn't rearrange truths, only reveal their edges. We agreed to counseling. We agreed to keep routines stable for Lily. We agreed to speak plainly and to leave the guest room door open so the house wouldn't feel like a map with forbidden rooms. Agreements can be promises or placeholders. These felt like both. 2 days later, I arrived at aftercare early. Lily came out holding a small journal the school counselor had given her to write about feelings. She waved when she saw me and ran into my arms. As we crossed the parking lot, the silver SUV pulled in. Mark stepped out and lifted a hand in greeting. Lily tightened her hold on me. "We have movie Friday," she said loudly, as if staking a claim. "We do," I replied, smiling. Mark stopped, then nodded, understanding that tonight our doorway was not his to approach. At home, we made popcorn and watched a film about a girl who learns to fix clocks. Halfway through, Lily pressed pause and looked at me with a seriousness that made her seem older. "Daddy," she said, "if someone tries to take your place, do you disappear?" I shook my head. "Nobody can replace someone who loves you the way I do," I said. "Love isn't a chair you move. It's a bridge you build." She absorbed that, unpaused the movie, then leaned into my side until her breathing matched mine. The next morning, I found a new drawing on the fridge. This time, our family stood by the willow tree. I was holding the kite string. Emily stood nearby, looking uncertain but present. Mark appeared in the background, small outside the circle of us. Above our heads, Lily had drawn a speech bubble. "Don't worry, Daddy, I know where home is." I stared at the words for a long time, hearing the wind in the branches and the creak of the swing in her first drawing and the cork click of a door shutting gently. I realized Lily had seen through every soft explanation, every careful half-truth, and had chosen clarity long before we did. That afternoon, Emily suggested we talk with Lily together. She wanted to explain change without turning it into blame. We sat at the dining table with colored pencils scattered like fallen crayons from a busy day. Lily listened, hands folded, eyes steady. When Emily finished, Lily looked at both of us and said, "I'm not a parcel you pass back and forth. I'm me. I pick where my heart sits." She slid her journal toward me. On the first page, she had written a single sentence in shaky letters. "Truth is quiet, but it doesn't hide." Emily's eyes filled, not dramatic tears, just the ordinary kind that arrive when certainty dissolves. She reached for Lily's hand. I covered both of theirs with mine. We stayed like that, a strange, fragile knot that might hold or might loosen, while the basil on the sill finally perked up in the late light, as if for once it had decided to try. The next week unfolded with careful manners and lists on the fridge. Emily and I moved around each other like actors sharing a stage with marks taped to the floor. Lily went to school, drew more kites, and watched us the way children watch weather, quietly, accurately. In the evenings, I read her the clock-fixing story again, letting the steady tick of the words smooth the day's edges. Counseling started on a Tuesday. The office had soft chairs and plants that didn't wilt. Our counselor, a calm woman with a notebook that never seemed to fill, asked us to describe the marriage without using the word fine. Emily said she felt unseen. I said I felt uninvited. We both admitted our routines had turned into railings and then into walls. The counselor nodded as if we'd identified a leak before the ceiling sagged. She gave us homework. Name one thing each night that you noticed and appreciated about the other, and offer one small repair that didn't ask for applause. That first night, I thanked Emily for showing up, even though it hurt. She thanked me for keeping Lily's world steady. For my repair, I suggested we stop whispering in hallways. Lily deserved the dignity of clear rooms. Emily suggested we tell Mark that pickups were family matters unless there was an emergency. She would handle that call. I agreed, not because I wanted to punish anyone, but because boundaries are bridges with guardrails. When she called him, I heard only her side, the soft voice she uses to close a door kindly. After, she lingered in the kitchen. "He's disappointed," she said. "He said he cares about Lily too." I nodded. Caring is not a credential. It's a responsibility earned by showing up in storms, not only sunny afternoons. Friday brought a school open house. Hallways smelled like crayons and floor cleaner. Lily's classroom had a gallery of family portraits. I braced myself. Her drawing showed a tidy house with 4 windows and a door that looked like a smile. Inside, 3 figures sat at a table. I recognized my beard as a set of careful dashes. Emily's hair made a ribbon. Lily had drawn herself between us, one hand reaching to each side. In the corner, smaller, stood a man in a blue cap holding a kite string that wasn't attached to anything. The teacher said Lily loved metaphors. I said she gets that from her mother. Emily bit her lip and stared at the small, unattached string for a long time. That weekend, Mark asked to stop by and give Lily a book about puzzles. He promised he'd come only if we both were there. I said yes, partly because evasions create shadows, and partly because Lily had a right to see people behave with respect in the daylight. He arrived with a paper bag and a careful smile. The book had glossy pages, each puzzle built like a tiny locked door. Lily sat at the coffee table and tried one while the adults stayed civil on the couch. Mark told her not to force any piece. "If it doesn't fit, it doesn't belong," he said. Lily looked up with that unblinking honesty that turns rooms into mirrors. "Like people who try to live where they don't belong?" she asked. Not cruel, not loud, just true. Silence landed like snowfall. Mark opened his mouth, then closed it. Emily squeezed Lily's shoulder and said, "We're learning that together." I said, "We are." The puzzle clicked into place under Lily's hands. After he left, Emily sat at the dining table and traced a ring of condensation her glass had left on the wood. "I wanted him to be a solution," she said. "I forgot that people aren't substitutes, they're people." I brewed tea we didn't need and set a cup in front of her. "He may be a good man," I said, "but he isn't a good fit for this house, not like this." She nodded, eyes tired. "I keep thinking about Lily's sentence," she whispered. "Truth is quiet, but it doesn't hide." In counseling, we practiced telling the truth without adding thorns. We talked about how loneliness can sit in a crowded kitchen, how help can arrive in the wrong shape. We talked about trust as something you plant again, seed by seed, not a switch you flip. The counselor asked what revenge meant to me. I surprised myself by answering, clarity. Not humiliation, not scorched earth, just a clean, bright room where everyone sees what's on the table. So I planned a dinner, not a trap, a dinner with lights warm and plates matched, where the story would be told simply and the future would be asked to step forward. I invited my sister, who adores Lily and refuses drama. I invited Emily's mother, who loves order and has a talent for folding napkins into little lilies. I told Emily I wanted our families to hear from us, not from rumors. She hesitated, then agreed. Mark was not invited. This wasn't a tribunal. It was a ledger balanced aloud. The night of the dinner, Lily helped me set the table. She placed a tiny paper flag at each setting, a habit she'd invented during movie nights. On each flag she wrote a word: listen, care, promise, try. She handed me the last one and whispered, truth. I set it by the basil, which finally looked alive, leaves bright, stem stubborn. Emily watched us and smiled with something like grief and gratitude stitched together. Family arrived with polite hugs and cautious eyes. We ate roasted chicken, green beans that snapped, rolls that steamed. Ordinary food for a turning point. After dessert, I cleared my throat and spoke. I didn't narrate mistakes like trophies or Lance blame into the room. I said we had lost our map and were drawing a new one. Emily spoke next. She admitted what needed admitting without spiraling into apology theater. She said Mark would not be around Lily. She said we were trying counseling, that we might choose separate paths, that we would remain a team for our daughter no matter the outcome. Questions came, some soft, some sharp. We answered simply. Lily sat between her grandmother and my sister, swinging her feet, listening like a small judge. At one point she held up one of her flags, promise, and said, "Can you promise we keep Friday movies in Sunday library?" We promised, both of us at once. The room exhaled. When everyone left, the house felt lighter, as if windows had been washed. At the sink, Emily said, "Thank you for not making me the villain." I said, "Thank you for not making our daughter the shield." We stood there, not fixed, not broken, just two people elbow deep in soapy water, doing the next right thing. The following morning, Lily brought me her journal. On a fresh page, she'd drawn a house again. Inside, a table. Above it, a banner that read, "Our Rules." Beneath, 3 lines. "Tell the truth, keep the promises, share the kites." "What does share the kites mean?" I asked. She shrugged. "It means let the happy things fly even if the wind changes." Emily walked in then, hair still damp, face clear. "I told Mark not to call," she said. "I told him I need to be alone with my choices for a while, not fill the silence with company." I thanked her without ceremony. She kissed Lily's hair and headed out to the porch, where the morning was busy tightening blue into the sky. That night, after Lily slept, I opened a new file on my laptop and drafted a practical plan. Boundaries, schedules, counseling dates, the number for a mediator if we needed one, the budget trimmed for a future that might fork. It felt less like revenge than repair. Yet, in a quiet corner of my mind, I understood that the truest revenge on betrayal is a life so clear it leaves no space for shadows to hide. Lily had shown me that. Her drawings were lighthouses. I printed the plan and left it on the counter with 2 pens. In the margin, I wrote, "Partnership looks like this." When Emily came back inside, she read it, picked up a pen, and began to add notes in her tidy hand. We didn't talk much. The house didn't need speeches. It needed steadiness. Outside, the wind moved through the willow, and somewhere a kite, forgotten in the closet, waited for hands to carry it back into the open. Months passed. Life, in its quiet persistence, began stitching itself back together. Emily and I didn't rush to redefine us. We learned to coexist in honesty. Some days we were partners rebuilding, other days we were polite co-parents exchanging updates about homework and doctor's visits. The difference was, everything was out in the open now. No half-truths hiding behind closed phones or careful smiles. Lily thrived in the calm. Her laughter returned, unguarded and bright. She'd run through the yard with her kite, shouting for the wind to do its job. Emily often joined her, sleeves rolled up, hair loose, both of them chasing the orange tail that danced against the sky. Sometimes I'd stand by the porch watching, knowing that forgiveness doesn't always mean reunion. Sometimes it's simply peace. One evening, as the sun melted behind the willow, Lily handed us each a folded paper. Inside was another drawing, 3 figures side by side, holding the same kite string. No names, no labels, just 3 people sharing the wind. "That's my family," she said. "No one's missing, no one's replaced." Emily looked at me, tears soft but real. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I nodded. "Me too." We didn't promise forever, only better days. That night, I tucked Lily in. She smiled, half asleep, and murmured, "See, Daddy? The truth fixed us." And somehow she was right. The storm had passed, but it left a sky clear enough for every kite to rise again.